today we're going to be implementing some strategies and let you guys know. And then look, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. If you want to get in on mock drafts where you can contribute to our ADP, all the ADP that we use is Dynasty Rewind ADP. Now, there may be some times where Nate or I go and look for other sources just to compare how things are, but typically we like to use our own ADP here to let you guys know what our thoughts are on players. So get in there. And also, don't forget, check out our website, dynastyrewind.com. Got links to merch. There's also links to the Patreon there as well. And some great articles on there as well. Dustin just released another one, another wide receiver article. For the life of me, I cannot. Oh, it was about Jerry Jeudy. That's it. It was a great article too.
It was. We got Devontae Adams. We got Jerry Jeudy. Excited for his third one.
And I have my next article, rough draft written, hopefully finishing that later this week. Just with the heat been going to bed early. But let's get into it. Nate, what is your first startup strategy?
All right. So we're talking Superflex startup here. That's what I think most of us play at this point. I do have a couple one quarterback leagues, which I do quite enjoy. I would not be happy if all my leagues were Superflex. I like the variety. I have a couple leagues where it's like half PPR as well. Josiah would want me to make sure I say here that everyone doesn't need to play PPR. It's not necessarily fair that running
standard scoring or
check down and get a point. That's kind of ridiculous, I think, maybe a little bit. But we're playing Superflex, and in Superflex startup mocks and drafts and everything that we do, I'm always trying to get quarterbacks early, Mike. I think it's essential to play in Superflex, and each year changes a little bit on when you need to go grab your quarterback. I remember when I first got into Dynasty, into Superflex leagues, during COVID, it was like the first 10 or 11 picks of the first round were quarterbacks. There was a tier break after that, and then, it might be another round or two before they really got into another quarterback run. As of late, there's more like 5-6 guys that go in the first round. It changes as the league changes, but I think it's really important to have that quarterback because in Superflex, it's really hard to trade for one once you get into the season. People don't like to give up quarterbacks, especially good quarterbacks. They'll trade you Geno Smith. They'll trade you Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, but they're not going to trade you Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. So the cheapest you're ever going to get them, or maybe your only opportunity to get them, is in the first round, in the startup, in the second round. So I'm always trying to get at least one good quarterback in my draft. And it doesn't mean it has to be your first round. I like to think that in the first 3 rounds, and if you're really trying to get like a good quarterback, it's probably the first 2 rounds. But getting that kind of hero quarterback to build your team around in Superflex. If you have one really good quarterback and then you go other positions and you want to punt quarterback, which, Mike, I know you like to punt quarterback usually in Superflex drafts.
Punt the premium.
You can, but you can do that. If you have one really strong guy, you can punt, stream quarterback 2, figure it out. You can go have Aaron Rodgers and Sam Darnold or something like that and figure it out later. But for me, I want to make sure I have that kind of one guy that I can rely on, and then I can worry about the Superflex spot itself later. So one way I want to implement this is mapping out my first 3 picks. Looking at ADP, depending on where I'm picking, where can I get the quarterback that I want without hamstringing my other positions? If you really want to go ahead and get that Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, these are the first round quarterbacks: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, and Patrick Mahomes. According to DLF ADP, Mike, we don't quite have startup ADP yet. We're working on that right now with some startup mocks if you want to come join us. So going off of May's ADP over at DLF, those are the guys who are in the first round. If you want one of those, great. And then you build from there. You don't have to go quarterback twice. But in those first 3 rounds, I'm trying to find the quarterback that I want to build my team around. And then I look at the rest of the draft board and the positions, mostly running back and wide receiver. Which position do I like in the mid rounds? For me, I like the wide receivers in the mid rounds right now.
Yeah.
I was looking at the draft board right now. There's like 40 wide receivers I'm comfortable putting to my lineup, maybe 50. There's a ton of them. And a bunch of young guys that we haven't even really seen play yet. So for me, looking right now, like my first 3 picks, I'm probably going quarterback and then running back, or maybe running back and then quarterback, because whatever I think I can get a good value in midway through the draft, I'm going to go the opposite position of that between running back and wide receiver and get that kind of like hero wide receiver, hero running back to buoy my team so I can, go go grab my second running back later and just kind of stream my RB2. So I mentioned the first round running backs, some round 2 running backs. If you want to go Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson in the first round, if it's tight end premium, maybe Brock Bowers. If you go one of those guys in round 1, round 2 quarterbacks look like Drake May, Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams right now. I'm pretty happy having one of those guys as my cornerstone piece as well. Yes, it's not Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, but I feel comfortable building my team around one of those guys moving forward. Once we get into round 3, we're looking at Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. It's not bad, but it doesn't feel as good as those first 2 rounds for sure. I do think Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, pretty good long-term assets still. They're still, somewhat young. Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, I don't love as much long-term, but they've been very, very productive. And you still can do quite well with those guys. But once you leave that round 3, I don't like a lot of the quarterbacks that are going to be on the draft board, for building my team around. So I want to make sure I get one of those guys in those first 3 rounds to build my team around.
I like this, Nate. And, now if you're going to wait until round 3, you really have to nail your first 2 picks.
Yeah,
for sure. These have to be surefire locked in guys. You got to be taking guys like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, or Brock Bowers, as you mentioned before. So it's definitely important, especially in Superflex, get your quarterbacks early, because you're right. Trading for a quarterback in Superflex sucks. And especially if you did do it as a 1-week rental, because you need somebody. And that being said, keep your eye on the waiver wire. You see a guy get hurt on Sunday, start looking around, see if his backup is taken, if he's going to look to miss some time, and this is, again, why trading for fab is important too, because if you could just throw a ton of fab at a player that's on the waiver wire and you could outbid everybody and still have some left over, that's crucial. That'll help you get through the season, hopefully get into the playoffs.
Yeah. And the worst part about trading for a quarterback in Superflex is usually the other team knows that you need a quarterback.
Yeah.
And they're going to ask top dollar.
Yeah, they will. That's for sure. And unless you think you can win it all, you might not necessarily want to pay top dollar. So the good thing about Superflex is you can put other positions in at the Superflex spot. And there are times where, having a really good running back or wide receiver could end up being better than a bad backup quarterback. We've seen that before. Yeah. So Jake Fromm starting for the Giants 1 week a few years ago rings a bell to me. So my first strategy is choosing what type of team you want to build in year 1. Okay, a lot of people, we think of dynasty startups, we think infinite, but you still have to play that inaugural season. So this is going to impact both your immediate and your long-term future. And I gave 4 different types of teams that you could build. I'll explain what they are. So you have veteran, balanced, youth movement, or what Ryan McDowell dubbed as the productive struggle. So, your veteran team, this is your win it all year 1 team. It's a low risk, but possibly low risk / high reward team. It's going to give you the best shot at winning it all. The one thing I will say is be mindful of your bye weeks. That obviously is not so much as important if you're doing like the productive struggle or the youth movement as much, because you just care about being young and being competitive for a long time. Because, you may want to make moves during the draft as well. This could limit your spending during and after the season with future picks and fab. If you do have vets in danger of retiring or aging out of the league, this is going to require a lot of work in the offseason. For example, Aaron Rodgers today or yesterday saw that he plans on this being his last year in the league. So obviously his startup value is going to go down. He's still a great guy that I think is a good guy to pick up, later on in a draft, but I'll get to that later. So a balanced team, there's a good blend of veterans and younger vets. I don't want to say too young, but a guy who would be 3rd, 4th, 5th year in the league, still up and coming, maybe established, whatever. It's going to have at least enough to make a playoff push here. Youth movement. You may not have what it takes to contend, but you're going to have enough to at least make that push again. And the best time to obtain young playmakers is during the draft, Nate. With a younger team, you could be able to tweak your team annually to stay competitive. And then the productive struggle, if you don't know what that is, you're basically tanking it all for year 1, possibly more, in hopes of obtaining future capital, going all in at a later time and being a real juggernaut down the road. And look, it's fun, but it takes a lot of maintenance before, during, and especially after the draft to play and to pay off any dividends. So you really have to, I personally like to go with a balanced team right off the rip. That's how I like to do it. Not saying that it requires the least amount of work, but it just gives me the most peace of mind having a team like that. But of course, as Nate alluded to before, it's all sometimes about how the board falls to you.
Yeah, I like the productive struggle.
It is fun. I'll say that.
It takes a lot of work. You gotta play the waivers. It's not my go-to strategy. I want to win.
Yeah.
But the productive struggle, if the board falls the way where you're able to pick up a lot of wide receiver talent, I think that's usually the productive struggle kind of strategy. Is you're really going hard at wide receiver because if you're not looking to win year one, you're probably not investing a lot in running backs, at least not high. With high draft capital. So, you're picking up rookie running backs, maybe, post-hype sleepers who are, going second, third year running backs, but you're really investing in, wide receivers, maybe a couple quarterbacks who are young, tight ends, and some future draft capital. You're trading down throughout the board. And yeah, you're probably not going to win year one, but I've seen people, including myself, do the productive struggle and have a really, really competitive team year two. Especially if you know how to trade, how to play the waivers right, and then flip some of those guys that you pick up to more competitive teams that first season, you can put yourself in a really, really, really good spot for year two and beyond.
Yeah, exactly. Nate, I love your next strategy, by the way. Not forcing anything. What do you got?
Yeah, this is my strategy, not just in startup drafts, but just in Dynasty as a whole. I've always considered myself a value player. There are definitely players that I like more than other players, and that I might have a bit more of an emotional connection to, especially with how we watch these guys in college, how invested I am into college, and I see them come up through the ranks. I'm like, yeah, I want Tank Bigsby on my team, of course. But when I'm drafting, I'm always taking value because I'm not setting a lineup in my startup draft. That's not what I'm doing with my draft. I'm creating a portfolio. Some people like to equate it to stock investing and things like that. If you're familiar with that world, it can be, you take the values, you take, what performers look like they're going to do well in the future. And, even if, they're not the most popular thing right now, you see that there's value moving forward, you pick it up, when it falls down the draft board. The important thing here is, though, to not draft players you don't believe in just because they're good values. I made this mistake last year in one of our gold member Patreon startup leagues. I drafted Anthony Richardson in the second round.
Ooh.
And it's because there was a huge quarterback run in the first round. And I wanted to have two quarterbacks. So I can't remember who I picked up first off the quarterbacks. But then I looked at Anthony Richardson and I thought, okay, you know what? I don't really believe in Anthony Richardson. I'm not a huge fan of him fantasy football wise, but he has value. I can trade him for something in just a couple of weeks, maybe before the season starts. Maybe once the season starts and he has a couple of good games, I can trade him. I'm stuck with him. I'm still stuck with him, Mike. I have not been able to get rid of him.
And especially, have you heard the news coming out of Colts camp? Apparently, according to this article, came out 23 hours ago. Colts have clear leader in quarterback battle between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, and it sounds like it's Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Insanity.
I've been kicking myself for over a year now because I drafted a guy I did not believe in just because he was a value. So there is a balance to this.
Right.
Just because you're like, oh, well, consensus value puts him at the top of the board. A couple of people have passed on him. It's a great opportunity. So, you need to know the players you still believe in. Don't listen to yourself because there is a value on the board. But I think picking up value can really put your team up in a really good position. And I wanted to point out a couple of my favorite values right now, according to DLF ADP for May. At the quarterback position, Trevor Lawrence, currently quarterback 14. He's got Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter. I'm excited about where they can go with that offense. Cam Ward, quarterback 19. When was the last time that we had the 101 so low in the quarterback rankings? And Cam Ward is, I know the Titans offense is not a scary offense, but Cam Ward is going to be really good, I think.
Yeah.
So I think he's a value right now at the quarterback 19. And then Bryce Young, quarterback 22. Had a great ending to the season, was actually one of the best quarterbacks for the final half of the season. I don't know what's going to look like this year, but I have believed in him in the past. I'm going to continue to believe in him. I like those three guys at the quarterback position in the later rounds to pick up value. And I'm picking players here that I think a lot of people are down on. for one reason or another. So these are guys that are falling down the board and you can pick up as values.
Nate, can I say one thing real quick too? You're
Yeah.
talking about this and how you hated that you took Anthony Richardson. Dude, he has a career completion percentage of 50.6. Last year it was 47.7, and he has an 11-13 career touchdown to interception ratio.
Mike, those are Tim Tebow numbers.
Yeah. Not good.
Not good. Not good. And he's on my team. It sucks. It's my one share, and I'm not happy about it. Shouldn't have picked him.
I mean, I just, what do we say about the guy at this point? You know what I mean?
Maybe he needs to change the scenery. At the running back position, Kenneth Walker, running back 17. I think this guy is immensely talented, just has had some injury.
I like that.
Bad luck over his career so far, but I'm not sure what that offense looks like, but I know Kenneth Walker is good. DeAndre Swift at RB31. This is a guy I flip-flop back and forth on all the time, but he survived the draft. He's now playing in an offense with Ben Johnson. I expect this offense to be better. There's not really another running back there that I trust outside of DeAndre Swift, so RB31 looking pretty good. And then Brian Robinson at RB35. This is the starting running back for one of our most exciting young offenses in the league right now, helmed by Jaden Daniels. I know Brian Robinson will be a free agent after this year, but he seems like one of those guys that will find a job, be part of a committee, still be productive. Not going to be an RB1 or anything, but he'll still be a flex play post Commanders, or maybe they keep him around. At the wide receiver position, I listed a couple here. I'll go through them quickly. Jordan Addison, at wide receiver 28. This is a guy that's performed really, really well across from Justin Jefferson. I don't know what it looks like with J.J. McCarthy, but at wide receiver 28 is a good value. Brandon Ayuk, you obviously can't expect a lot of production beginning of the season, but Brandon Ayuk at wide receiver 35, he is the wide receiver one for the 49ers as soon as he's healthy again. Jerry Jeudy, Dustin just put an article up about how he's one of the best sleepers for this year. Another guy who's a wide receiver one on his team, currently wide receiver 39. Good value there. Josh Downs, wide receiver 48. Josh Downs might be the wide receiver one on his team. And if Daniel Jones is throwing the ball, I want a lot of Josh Downs. He is a target hog, and he's a guy that's going to catch a lot of passes. Jaden Reed, I was so surprised to see him at wide receiver 50, Mike.
Yeah, that's way low.
Matthew Golden hurt him that much? I don't believe it. I think Jaden Reed's going to be pretty similar to what he has been in the past. I think Matthew Golden really affects the other wide receivers more. I think Jaden Reed's role is pretty set in stone right now. And then, Mike, Darnell Mooney, wide receiver 58. All of you in the comments tell me how good Darnell Mooney was last year, and now you're letting him fall to wide receiver 58 when the Falcons defense is supposed to be a bottom 3 defense this year. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Darnell Mooney, if you believe in Drake London, you got to believe in Darnell Mooney to put some fancy points.
Yeah.
And then, Mike, I will finish you with the tight ends. Mark Andrews. Of course, I want Mark Andrews. And he's tight end 9 right now. He's 29 years old. He's not even 30 yet. Tight end 9, I think that's a really good value. Tucker Kraft, tight end 10. That's how good of a value Mark Andrews is. He's the guy right in front of Tucker Kraft. Okay. I think Tucker Kraft has a really good season with the Packers. Don't know if he's going to be a top 3 guy, but I think he's going to easily continue to be a top 10 guy for a while. He's pretty talented. Has a good opportunity there, good target share. And then Pat Freiermuth, Mike, guy we both like, tight end 20. Good value there. So I think there's just a good way to go about startups. Go after the value. Pick up the value where it is. It's like getting free extra points.
My next strategy is don't be afraid to make moves before and during the startup draft. So this goes against my better judgment, but get chatty with your league mates. See if anybody wants to move around. A lot of people, Nate, you're talking about planning out your first 3 selections. They might want to do that. Some people are ready to go all in right away. They want to move around. They want to move up in the first, second, third round. Maybe you could be the guy or gal to help them out with that. And this is also contingent on what type of team you want to roll out during the initial season too. If you're looking to do a productive struggle, trading away a lot of those early picks is going to be beneficial for you, especially if you can get rookie draft picks at a later year. It's going to help you in your overall goal there. And a reminder as well, picks are generally worth more when they're on the clock.
Yeah.
I think we could all agree on that.
Usually. Most of the time.
Usually. Yeah.
You want somebody that's on the board.
Right. But what I'm saying is they're not going to be super valuable in the 5th round of a rookie draft. But, if you're in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round of a startup, those picks are going to be worth more generally on the board. I think once you get past like the 10th or 11th
Yeah,
round,
once you hit the double digits, it starts to really slow down. Then it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just move
they're
up
not
maybe
going
3
to overpay
spots.
because they're just going to go to the person drafting a spot or two behind you and make a better deal. So, the contingent on that is moving during the draft. Don't ask for an overpay once you get past a certain point. You got to feel that out, obviously, because every league is different and everybody values picks differently too. So it's not just going to be a black and white thing. You're going to have to do some politics, some
Yeah,
draft
and you quickly realize who wants to trade up and who wants to trade down.
for sure.
And I'll say I'm someone that's always looking to trade down in startups because, like I said, I'm a value drafter. I'm a value-based drafter. So I'm seeing someone that I know is going to fall down the board. I'm seeing someone maybe 12 picks below where I'm picking that I would probably rather have over the guys that are in front of him in ADP. So I'm like, hey, yeah, I'll move down around. I'll move down a couple spots. I'm almost always looking to trade down.
Yeah. So Nate's your man if you want to trade up and he wants to trade back. Nate, what is your last strategy here for the evening?
It's a pretty simple one, but it's a very important one.
I like
Be
this.
flexible. Be
Yes.
flexible. Don't be scared to change your strategy if the board is falling differently than you expect. You know, and I'm not saying that isn't, oh, hey, look, all these running backs are going. Hey, 8 running backs went in the last 12 picks. I need to go pick a running back now. Usually, most of the time, it is better to start a run than it is to end a run. If you're like, hey, I want to go running back heavy, and then all these running backs go in front of you, doesn't mean you need to now reach for running backs just to fill your quota of what you went into the draft with. Especially if you're drafting, in the middle of the summer, there's still time to make trades before the season starts. That's the big thing to remember is you're not drafting a lineup just yet. So being flexible, if you are ending a run, it's important that the player you're picking is still in the tier of some of the players that have been picked in that run for that position. I think tier-based drafting is really important. That's how I like to draft. I hate doing just numbered ranks like, oh, here's my top 50 dynasty players 1 through 50. I don't like that. I don't think it gives you a lot of flexibility when you're in a startup draft, depending on your strategy as well. I like to do tiers. You might have 5 guys in tier 1, 10 guys in tier 2, 5 guys in tier 3. I think that's a much better way to look at it because I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a psychic and that I know exactly what's going to happen this year, 3 years from now with these players. I don't know who's going to get injured. I don't know who's not going to be motivated and not play well. I don't know who's going to get drafted this competition. So being able to be a little bit flexible with your drafting and looking at tiered rankings and just making sure that you're picking up value in those tiers, that's the flexibility I think that is really important for building a good team throughout the majority of that draft. And I'm going to be posting tiered rankings on our website, Mike. I don't have them on there at the moment, but I'm working on them currently. When we were starting to do this video, I was like, I need to get my tiered rankings up on the website. I started working on just the straight rankings, but like I said, I hate doing that. I'd much rather give you tiers. That's how we've done our positional rankings before here on YouTube. So the tiered rankings are coming. If you want them for your startups, they're going to be on dynastyrewind.com in the coming weeks. So make sure you keep an eye on there. Be flexible. If you wanted to go running back heavy and that's not what's looking good, look at the wide receivers, look at the tight ends, look at the quarterbacks, and don't just react. Don't just react. Make sure you're looking down the draft board and seeing, what's your next pick going to be? What's your pick after that going to be? And then based on that, then you make your reaction. But don't just be reactive and just pick based on what's in front of you.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Flexibility is good, and there's times you're going to have to be flexible in season as well. So start it off early in your draft. All right, so my last strategy is drafting for upside in the later rounds.
Absolutely.
There's going to be a time where, especially if you're on Sleeper, my preferred fantasy platform, as I believe it is yours as well, Nate.
As much as we love Fantrax.
We do love Fantrax, but as of right now, Sleeper is still king for me. And look, we do have 2 leagues on Fantrax, and they're freaking great. The C2C leagues.
I love my C2C leagues on Fantrax.
I love C2C leagues, man. Don't like doing the draft.
Does college fantasy football. Sleeper does not. So they got him on that.
That is true. And you know what? The thing that kills me about that is if you had these guys in your system as college players, you just take the hit and put them in there. It's so much easier to get them in there when they're NFL rookies. All you have to do is change their picture and assign them a team. Just saying, developers, just saying. But regardless, I don't know I don't remember how it is doing a startup draft in Fantrax because it's been a little bit, but I know in Sleeper, when you're making your picks, you could see your team, right? So like when you scroll down, it'll show you what your team looks like a little bit. So once your starting lineup is filled out and you have what you feel are some good depth pieces on your bench, this is where you look for upside. Your castaways that maybe, people are done with because of age or past injuries, or they're on a new team they didn't like the landing spot. So it's a good time to start looking at rookies that would have been drafted in the 3rd to 5th rounds of a rookie draft. You can get those guys a little bit later. And I like to take a shot on veterans that are coming off an injury, like I said, new teams, stuff like that, or just aging out. Christian Kirk rings a bell. And Zach Ertz is another guy that nobody wanted last year. He was tight end 7 on the season in 2024. He's back in Washington. He has a great connection with Jaden Daniels. Those are just 2 examples of guys that I would be looking at in the later rounds. And depending on your makeup and what type of team you decide to roll out, you can also move some of these picks for future draft picks as well. So, draft for upside, and upside also counts as picks in a year or 2. Just saying.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at DLF's ADP and looking at players post 200. Christian Kirk's there at 209. Demario Douglas, I like that guy, at 206. And he's the wide receiver 2 for the Patriots. I don't think Kyle Williams is going to out-target Demario Douglas just yet. But yeah, you go down this list, you find some good players. Marquise Brown, I don't know what he's going to be doing, but he's with the Chiefs, so there's always a chance there. Zach Ertz is there. Definitely, going for upside. And there's a lot of players. It's a chaotic mess when you get to that part, but find guys that you believe in.
Yeah, take some shots on guys there. Go for the upside. So, all right, that's going to do it for us. Some Superflex startup strategy. Let us know how you do in your startups. We're always interested to hear. If you listen on Spotify, leave a comment. Say, hey, my draft went well. Thanks for the advice. I put polls up occasionally if I have a reason to put a poll up. Sometimes I don't. But until then, check out dynastyrewind.com. Go buy a shirt. We got a merch link in there. Check it out. You're going to love our store. Until then, everybody, for Nate, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening.